So I am the CEO and co-founder of Earth Hour, but only for 2 more weeks. So at the end of this Earth Hour, I've been doing it for 8 years, started it in Sydney, what seems like a lifetime ago. I gave my notice, and I've been, in the last 3 months, since March, kind of enjoying myself going through the process of finding my next thing. Now, I'm not going to talk to you too much about that, though I am looking. If anyone's in recruitment. Excellent. The day after my last day at work, I had quite a lot of long service leave to kick in. So the day after that, my wife, who is not looking for a job, and I'm not sure you'd be able to help her anyway, she's a human-elephant conflict expert. Anyone in that business? Okay. Not many people. Okay. But also runs a small safari company. So she sent me to Botswana. So some of the photos you'll see today are from Botswana, and I'm promoting myself as a photographer, amongst many other talents. So when I first sort of got into NGO world, the biggest thing that I kind of came to realize really quickly was that if you can find those amazing people, you can do amazing things. And my first team that I built as a boss, I sort of saw it as a lost dog's home. And this was really about, including myself, and this is really about finding people that weren't necessarily, or hadn't necessarily got a brilliant track record, but had passion and had a desire to do something special. And with Earth Hour, I've been really lucky. I've probably had about 100 people go through teams that I've run. It kind of goes up and down every year because it's fundamentally an event. And I've worked with some amazing people, many of whom have come from the lost dog's home, as I call it. So this is great talent, needs a good home. I started in 2007 in Sydney, and amazing journey. It started just one city. It's now 7,000 plus, 162 countries. I thought I might show you a little video to show you how far we've come. This is from this year.
It's been a long time coming since I've seen your face. I've been everywhere and back trying to replace everything.
Hi, I'm Andrew Garfield, and I play Spider-Man in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I'm proud that Spider-Man is the first superhero ambassador for Earth Hour. Earth Hour is a movement that has created massive impact around the world.
Earth Hour isn't just about lights off. It's about people across the world coming together throughout the year to join forces to improve the planet.
Earth Hour is special because it's a movement where you can take charge. Earth Hour gives you the power to inspire anyone, even if you're just one person.
This year, Earth Hour will launch the world's first crowdfunding and crowdsourcing platform for the planet.
There are great projects from the crowd for the planet happening all over the world.
So you too can become a superhero just like Spider-Man.
Now, if you haven't yet, you need to get involved.
Imagine what we can do this year with Spider-Man by our side.
Never underestimate your power. Never underestimate what you can do.
So join me and be a superhero.
Use your power at earthhour.org.
Use your power at earthhour.org.
Use your power at earthhour.org.
So that was Earth Hour 2014, and it seems like a lifetime ago, but it's only about 3 months ago that we did that. What I thought I'd try and talk to you a bit about today was where I've got to after 8 years of doing that, where I think the most exciting and amazing possibilities are, and why what you do turns out to be one of the most important things for any company, organization on the planet. So for me, the biggest possibility, and you can see some of it in that show reel there, is the power of people, the power of individuals, and the power of brands to change the world that we live in. Now, we face extraordinary challenges around the world, whether they're environmental or many others, and yet we still haven't really sussed the power that we have collectively. We are the first generation in history that has the power to connect behind a common purpose. No generation has had this opportunity before. So whilst the challenges are extraordinary, tough, difficult, the opportunities are also extraordinary and amazing. Last week, when I was last minute preparing this presentation, I spent a fair amount of time trying to capture some of the brands that I dealt with in one day. So this might be through social media, through people I was talking to about jobs, through Legoland. My son was off to Legoland. One of my sons was off to Legoland. Crowdfunding for Indiegogo. And LinkedIn, which is where you're at today. And what I think is amazing about that is the potential for connectivity. Yet we see most of the actions we take as not connected. So just bear that in mind as we go forward. Now, we are on our way to 9 billion people on the planet. We have, as I said, some pretty amazing challenges ahead. Not least of all, for example, haze, pollution. All of these things require collective action. And so for me, that is the big opportunity, collective action. And as a brand, as a talent recruiter, the people that are passionate about reaching out, the people that are passionate about connecting, are the people that are going to be leading the way. So I want to get into a little bit of this. This is Seize the Opportunity. This is a cat photo that I took. Out of focus. But that's moody, okay? So Seize the Opportunity. So going back to the beginnings of Earth Hour, sustainability. So Earth Hour is about the environment. Earth Hour is about the planet. This is what comes up when you Google sustainability. It's not a very nice word. It's not a very sexy word. This is a screen grab from about a year ago, actually, so old slide. But I'm not sure what message that gives you other than green and confusing and science and graphs and a bit of data, maybe. This is how the car industry sees sustainability and green. Firstly, I mean, this is a fairly sort of general kind of snapshot of it. Firstly, blue is the predominant color. So this is Volkswagen. This is Mercedes. That's Toyota. That's Nissan. Top one is Hyundai. That's BMW. Dominant color, blue. Simplicity. Blue planet. They have a lot of marketing. They have a lot of research budget. I'm sure they've worked this out better than we could. What I think is interesting about that, when you go back to the previous one, is the difference between how they're telling a story and how they're connecting with their customers. So I just wanted to put those slides up just to kind of give you an idea about how an industry, with its many wrongs, but many rights as well now, has seized an opportunity around eco, around green, and is seizing it ever faster for good business reasons. So here's another one. Now, I used to, as we moved the Earth Hour global headquarters to Singapore a couple of years ago from Sydney. Whether I was in Sydney or in Singapore, it used to drive me crazy that if it was in the States or in Europe, they had no idea how important this region was. They talk about it, but didn't really get it. And I've seen this slide a few times. Many people have used it. If you want to steal it, I'm sure the slides will be free for you to upload later. But it's a good slide to remind people of where we are and the opportunity that we have in this region. So whilst we have the biggest challenge, some of the biggest challenges, population, etc., we also have some of the biggest opportunities with brands to change things. So Earth Hour was about seizing an opportunity. It was about an opportunity that we had in Australia at the time when it started, which was we believed that people cared more than the then political party that ran the country did, John Howard's party. We believed that people would get up and do something, even if it was small. We believed in the power of symbolism and that we could go beyond that. And we believed that even though it could be deeply embarrassing if it didn't work, we'd give it a go. So I remember standing on the side of Sydney Harbour the first year, 2007, waiting to see if the lights would go out. And at the time, there was a lot of TV crews there and a lot of people standing around. And it would have been deeply embarrassing if it hadn't have worked. I'd also just given up smoking, so I was actually quite tense beyond just the Earth Hour thing. I still struggle with that, by the way. And then the lights started to go out. And it's an extraordinary feeling to have never met most of the people that took part, but to see the city go dark and to see the bridge lit by the moon, not by lights, and the Opera House the same. So the thing that I took away from that was the power of people. The power, if you can get an idea right, if you can get the right people around you, or you can be around the right people, you can do amazing things. Another photo. Take off. No reason for having it there, really, to be honest. So where are we now? What's great about Earth Hour and what is great about the world that we live in is it's no longer defined by a top-down way of doing business when it comes to individuals. So these are some of the most powerful Earth Hours in the world. Earth Hour is probably the biggest in Asia-Pacific, and then second in Latin America, not in Europe, not in America, although very big in Canada. For example, in India, over 15,000 schools have a competition that involves probably over 1 million kids in Earth Hour in doing good for the environment. Now, small in terms of Indian numbers, but the biggest environmental education program in the world. And it's driven by them, not by us. My team, 10 people. Globally working on this, about 1,000 people. But they come from banks, they come from scout groups, they come from WWF, they come from all sorts of different organizations, but self-organizing. In Indonesia, an amazing place, probably the most advanced in terms of using social media. Use Twitter to organize. They have something like 30 different Twitter accounts based on cities, organizing citizens to take part. It's very young, very millennial-driven. And you get these kind of amazing single individuals that do amazing things. The guy on your left is a guy called Nathi. He's in Swaziland. When he was 15, he ran around his neighbours going, "Why don't you turn the lights out? It's Earth Hour." And no one knew what he was talking about. Within 3 years, he'd built Earth Hour into a major event in Swaziland involving the king and major companies across the country. One 15-year-old. And Earth Hour is littered with stories of these amazing individuals who do stuff. When you want to employ him, I definitely would. Latin America. One thing that's always strikes me when I see these pictures is how good-looking are people in Latin America. In fact, so good-looking that we had to put a plant in there, which is the bloke just in the middle of the crowd in the bottom photograph, who's just an actor, who's a little bit uglier. That's not true, I'm joking. But Latin America, again, amazing place. They adopted this as their own. They turned it into a way of mobilizing millions of people in lots of different countries to do stuff for their country, for their environment. I'll talk a bit about some of the results later on. What did it actually achieve? And just to go a bit broader again, that says UAE, that's actually the Antarctic. But this girl on the left was a 16-year-old who became an Earth Hour ambassador and went to the Antarctic and has gone back to UAE and is now an ambassador talking about the environment within her own society. So kind of cool kid getting on there and doing stuff. On the right hand is Russia. Now, Earth Hour is massive in Russia, believe it or not. And in fact, the biggest environmental outcomes that we've got out of Earth Hour have come from Russia. And I would not have seen that happening when we first started the project. And I'll give you an example. I think imminently, legislation will pass in Russia that will protect an area of forest twice the size of France. And that's been driven by people power. Russians, not anyone else, Russians who have petitioned for that change. So really interesting to see how crowdsourcing, how crowd power can change the world that we live in. And then a little bit of Australia, our home, where we started. This year it was about the reef. They're building 5 major ports inside the Great Barrier Reef. Some insanity there. So Earth Hour became about mobilizing Australians to try and stop some of that happening. And in Singapore, where we had the cast of Spider-Man as our kind of global ambassadors, a bit of tree planting. But Earth Hour is now homed or based in Singapore. So you can see, very broad, very culturally broad, a youth brand in effect, but reaching beyond that as well. So here's some numbers, and I just show these just because of the scale of what you can do with not that many people. So again, my team, 10 people, goes up to about 20 in Singapore when we get close to the event. but those numbers are kind of Coke numbers. Maybe not all of them, but some of them are. And this happens not because we're particularly good, but because people in lots of different industries have helped us achieve it. So, for example, we worked very closely with Starcom, the media buyer. And this year, I think they helped us generate about $59 million worth of advertising space. Now, that's important to us because it increases our reach. It helps us reach more and more people. And we didn't know we could do that until we asked them. But what we found is those people in that, the culture in that company was one they said, right, we're going to get on it. And everyone got onto it. Everyone helped us. And I can say that's happened in so many different businesses that we've come across. And in a way, you know, people ask, why would you work for a certain company? That's one of the reasons a lot of people will come back with, you know, what do we do that makes us feel good? This is something that can make people feel good and achieve stuff. So I'm going to rush through a couple of these and just, you know, say the obvious. But when we first started, MySpace was the world's biggest social media platform. And I was just talking to the APAC boss of LinkedIn, who was at MySpace when we started, and in fact was probably one of the people that helped us turn MySpace dark for Earth Hour. So this is pre-Facebook days, obviously, so thank you for that. Helped us get on the road. But obviously this is what I'm talking about, this connectivity, this ability to share, the ability to do something. Now, have we gone far enough with Earth Hour? My belief is we've only scratched the surface of what is possible. And just to kind of add to that, the ability then to kind of share that story through more traditional outlets and to then plant your brand or whatever it is everywhere. So that's near Times Square. This is Korea, some Russia. And you can see it's kind of an amazing opportunity. We could not have done this 10 years ago. We probably couldn't have done this 5 years ago. So, as I said, opportunity. But what do you actually achieve by this? So for me, this was the most important thing with Earth Hour. We started it as symbolism, and shamelessly started it as symbolism, because most great social movements have started with some kind of symbolic act, whether it's Rosie Parks on a bus, chaining yourself to railings if you're a suffragette. The idea of Lights Out was, here is an excuse for you to talk to your neighbour, for you to do something, for you to reach out to somebody else and try and make a change, try and make a difference, at least have a conversation. This is a result from Argentina. The crowd created a campaign in Argentina to create their biggest ever marine protected area. It's about 29 times the size of New York, 3.4 million hectares. It's off the bottom end of Argentina, and it's now a massive sanctuary, a massive marine protected area, driven by the crowd. We had nothing to do with originating this idea. But what these guys were able to do was take a platform, a concept, a belonging, and make something amazing happen. So I thought I'd put a couple of other campaigns up there, but I'm only going to talk about Finish with Fins. This was not an Earth Hour or WWF campaign. This is one started by some guys in Hong Kong. This week in China, they've taken shark fin off the official menu for the government. That's a massive, massive deal. It means that shark fin is no longer essentially approved. This campaign, which has used a lot of celebrities, has used a lot of people power, has made that happen. Now, with Earth Hour, they're able to tap into our crowd to help that happen as well. But my point being that if you want to make something happen, you can be an individual citizen and motivate and mobilize millions. And that's amazing. And just one more quick example of the same thing, which is crowdfunding. So does everyone know? Everyone pretty much knows what crowdfunding is. It's basically small amounts of money that you give to a project that you think you want to back. Last year, $5.1 billion was raised through crowdfunding. So small amounts of money. Famous sort of crowdfunding sites are Kickstarter, Indiegogo. This year, it's meant to be about $9 billion. So exponential growth. Individual citizens making a choice to be part of something, to make something happen with personal responsibility. So this is the theme for me is you have power. You have much more power than you ever thought you would have, and there's more coming. It's what do we do with it? So we started the first crowdfunding platform for the planet this year with Earth Hour. It went okay. Could have gone better. We learned a lot. Big kind of part of Earth Hour is learning. But the potential, again, is there to do extraordinary things. So last one really on this year's Earth Hour. at the message we were trying to give, and the thing that I've learned over 8 years, the biggest thing I want anyone to take away from Earth Hour is use your power. And you can be, as this says, a superhero for the planet. It is this idea of you have more power than you want. So here's some lessons from Earth Hour. Cat photo. I was standing like this. I wasn't actually. I was in a Land Rover quite a way away. But this is the biggest thing for me. The biggest lesson I've learned is that it's not about how talented you are. It's not even necessarily about how passionate you are. It's how much persistence you have around a good idea. Not every idea is good, and you shouldn't have persistence around everything. This is a potato. My first job was on a potato farm. I was on a conveyor belt pulling out rotten potatoes. I got fired for lack of focus. I realized I wasn't passionate about potatoes. But here's another failure for you. This was the parent of Earth Hour. It's called Future Makers. And the artwork looks a bit dated now, but the idea was basically the future is man-made. We make the future. So some of the themes that Earth Hour have were very deeply integrated into this. And it didn't really work. It didn't really resonate. But the lessons that I took away from this were we needed hope, not fear. We needed something that would gather people together. The symbolism, the lights off is what we came up with as an idea in the end. And we needed to make it open source so anybody and everyone could own it and be part of it. And it feels quite smart now when I look back on those decisions. But at the time, they were really controversial. And, Earth Hour nearly didn't get off the ground because it was so controversial. Open source brands, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, I learned from this that even though you have failure, you can actually achieve extraordinary things off the back of failure by learning from it. So coming up to the end now, lucky you guys, I thought I'd leave with a quote of a very cool guy called Robert Swan. He's the person who was the first person to walk to both poles, Arctic and Antarctic. And his message resonates not just for environment, but for everything for me. And that's the greatest threat our planet greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will do something. And the greatest opportunity for us is that anybody can do something, whether that's a brand, an individual, a minister, a kid. And Earth Hour is full of those stories. So thanks for indulging me with a bit of your time. Dream big, and thanks very much.